You are Locked On Chargers Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello, and welcome to the Locked On Chargers Postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. And I'm not sure you want to claim this team today. This was an ugly one. He is Kenyon Barner, 9 years in the NFL, 3 rings to show for it. I am Pete Fox, covering sports in LA dating back to 2007 for NBC Sports Radio and ESPN LA. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Chargers Postcast brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 on bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, this one started out okay for the Chargers. First half looked pretty good. I think we've seen that before. And then the second half turned into what I was described as last week after the Chiefs game. Awful, embarrassing, terrible. So, and mainly because I didn't know, Kenyon, the final score of every Chargers Chiefs game dating back to the beginning of time. And I think the comment that I made was echoing the sentiments of the viewers and listeners that when the Chargers lose close games to teams like the Chiefs, they feel like it's okay, right? We don't feel bad. And you look back and the viewer was right that they have had a lot of close games, but he proved my point by saying, well, we were in all of those games. Yeah, but you lost, right? You lost. So yeah, I'm an idiot and embarrassing. And what was the other thing? Awful, because I didn't know the final scores to all those games. So I do apologize for not doing my homework for every Chargers Chiefs game throughout history. But today, I thought we had this one. I really did. You look back and you saw what the Bucs had done recently, and they beat a bunch of nobodies or bad teams, and they came out today with a chip on their shoulder in the second half.
Yes, they did.
And I honestly kind of, I don't want to play the excuse game here, but I feel like a big part of this is the fact that they're just dealing with injuries still. Justin Herbert was not 100%. For some reason, they stopped throwing the ball to Ladd McConkey, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just flipped the switch and stuffed it down their throat. I mean, there were some big drives for the Chargers or big moments where they needed a big drive, and they just came up completely empty. 5 minutes to go in the third. Throws an interception there, and that was pretty much the end of this game. When you look at this and say, here's what went wrong for the Chargers, what's top of the list for you?
I'm going to go. We've been talking about it for weeks now. I'm going right back to the run game. At one point in time, early in the fourth quarter, there was a total of 4 rushing yards in the second half. That is insane to me. And as I'm watching this game, first drive was great first drive. But then after that, it was, if the run didn't work on the first time we tried it, we're not going back to it. We're going to pass the ball. We're going to pass the ball. And it blows my mind. I cannot wrap my mind around the concept of why we don't run the ball consistently. It's like we are so quick to give up on the run game. You become one-dimensional. If you're a one-dimensional team, you are easy to beat in the NFL. It's mind. I'm confused. I really am. I'm baffled by this because it seems like we get on here week after week after week and we talk about the lack of running that we do. I don't understand it. I really don't.
Yeah. Gus Edwards, I think 3 yards in the second half, maybe 4, as you pointed out. Yeah. But 1 or 2 carries, and Kamani Vidal 3 for 9 in the game, and I think most of those were in the second half.
Yeah, what are we doing?
Yeah. To go back to the first half where things looked pretty good, I thought, all right, they're just going to feed Ladd McConkey. They're going to throw the ball. And again, we talked about this last week. We've talked about it a lot. You can't do it for the whole game, but at the same time, their general approach is we're going to be balanced. And I was like, well, you don't need to be balanced if you're going to throw the ball effectively. And find Ladd McConkey. It was nice to have him back. But they could be like 75-25, but it wasn't even that in the second half. There was literally no running game. And I think I heard Mark Sanchez say that they didn't play action once I was like, yeah, I mean, they've got nothing to trick the linebackers and the defense on, hey, we might run the ball, but then we're going to throw the ball. The one bright side that I did see a little bit of, I thought, because we discussed this last week about Herbie checking down. I thought today there were signs of him doing a better job, taking those under routes, good for 6, 7, 8 yards. And I was like, oh, that's nice. That's good. That's good. But then, he couldn't find anybody downfield. And then that big drive, with 5 minutes to go in the third, 2 bad passes to Ladd McConkey, and one of them was dropped by McConkey, but it wasn't good enough for a first down anyway. And the other one, you kind of felt when you saw it, it's like, well, he probably could have caught that ball. So it just felt like, I don't know why they stopped throwing the ball to Ladd McConkey. He's clearly their top receiver, the guy that was doing the best in the first half. But then in the second half, he kind of fell asleep. And, it just was, again, I feel like the Chargers defense has got to be like standing there looking at the offense going, hey,
fight back.
Help.
Do something. Help us.
Do so much, right? It was too much.
Mark Sanchez and talking about the play action aspect of it. What are we going to play action for when we aren't running the ball?
Yeah.
We're doing it. Right. There's no point. There's absolutely no point in running play action football if you're not going to run the ball. Then to get to Herbie and his checkdowns, does Herbie have to be hurt for us to see him check the ball down? Because that's what it appears to be. I go back to earlier in the season when he was dealing with the ankle injury earlier. He would check the ball down more. I think Herbie has to get more comfortable. Again, we talked about it last week. Get more comfortable with your backs. I don't know what's going on in practice. What I want to do, I really want to make it out to a Chargers practice sometime soon to get eyes and kind of see for myself, like, what does practice look like? What are these guys doing? Is there a lack of trust in the backs? Is there a lack of trust in there clearly is a lack of trust in the run game. And I'm going to be completely biased and harp on this run game because I am a running back. It bothers me to watch a NFL game and we see 10 carries between 2 backs an entire game. It's mind-blowing. You can't win football games this way.
Yeah, and then 0 for 6 on third down, 0 for 4 in the second half, and they were 0 for 2 in the second half, or in the first half rather. But it felt like, well, they only had 2 opportunities because they were moving the ball, and it was like, all right, this is, and Stone Smart, another good game, a 31-yard reception with a nice route, like a deep out over towards the sideline, and then shortly thereafter, like a play or two later, Herbie gets rolled up on and his ankle gets twisted, and we're like, oh no. I mean,
I want to say this about that play. I love Levante, and I don't think he's a dirty player at all whatsoever. So I don't even want to put that narrative out there. But I will say this: he did wrap that left ankle up kind of hard. He did. Now, it's obviously in the flow of the game, but I when you have a quarterback like Justin Herbert and there's an element there, I think guys tend to attack that. Not that you want to hurt somebody, but you want to win the game. But it looked a little odd to me.
Yeah, there was one play early in the first minute or two of the fourth quarter, where Herbert got knocked down, and they showed the replay, and the ball was a good 10 feet out of his hands, and he got knocked down. He got hit and then knocked down. And I'm like, where's the flag for that? I know Tier Tart got Mayfield up high with the
forearm to the
right around the collarbone neck area, and they gave him a penalty. That was a tough call. Again, look, those little things are minor. You can't whine about it when it's 40-17 and you get blasted for 27 in the second half. I mean, they had no signs of life at all. I mean, the game really fell off shortly after Tarheeb Still had the interception, his fourth of the season. Yeah, that was nice. But then for me, that big touchdown pass for 50 plus to Mike Evans. Like, what did you see that tackle or lack thereof?
Lack of tackle. It was a shove.
It had nothing to do with the tackle. I was like,
but you've seen that kind of that there was a couple plays with Mike where guys came up, and who was it? Marcus May came up and tried to boom. And under Mike Evans is a big guy. He is a big receiver. This is not your average size guy. So if you're going to come up, you really got to come with something. And 9 times out of 10, Mike is going to eat those hits. I've seen it playing in Tampa Bay with him.
Yeah.
But wrap up. Like, we're not big guys. You're not Brian Dawkins coming downhill. Wrap up, get a leg. It was puzzling to me. It was a lot of self-inflicted wounds, but I don't want to take anything away from the Buccaneers. They came out and absolutely dominated this game. It was just, this is one of those games. That's the sound.
You're right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you could harp on that went wrong. Yeah. After the break, we're going to talk about some of what went right for the Bucs, because there was 2 or 3 guys. One of them, a former Oregon Duck, that I'm sure you want to jump on Bucky's back.
Absolutely, 1,000.
We're going to talk about that after the break. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel, the place to hang out when every game is done. All right, today's episode of the Locked On Chargers postcast is brought to you by our friends at BetterHelp. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you don't like that therapist for whatever reason, it doesn't matter, you can switch at any time at no additional charge. Find comfort this December. It is a comforting time of year, family all over the place. And for whatever reason, if you feel like you want to get off to an early start on 2025 with improving yourself, give BetterHelp a try. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon. Get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Tonight's episode of the Locked On Chargers postcast also brought to you by TNT. It's that time of year. The coverage for the college football playoff is here. It's back. We're ready. And with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st. That's next Saturday, or this upcoming Saturday. College football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs, or SMU, battling Penn State. That's at noon. Then Clemson will take on Texas in a showdown at 4 Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. So the Chargers really kind of let one get away here, and it got away in a big-time, ugly second half where they gave up 27, losing 40-17. Losses now on back-to-back weeks for them. They're 8-6, 4-3 on the road. The Bucs improved to 8-6 and 5-2 on the road. I thought Baker Mayfield played really well. I'm not a big fan. Yes, I questioned the number 1 overall draft pick. I wasn't a fan mainly because of the off-the-field antics. Yeah. But I feel like he's done a very good job of being an upstanding dude, and I can't criticize him for stuff he did as a college student now. And for the most part, he seems like a focused, dedicated guy that goes out there and gives a damn and really wants to win and play hard. And he played very well today. I mean, you can't give him any criticism. 22 of 27, 288 yards, 4 touchdowns, just 1 interception, and only sacked 1 time, but you give that credit to the line. From the running game perspective, he was running a fair amount, led the team in rushing in the first half, ran for 25 yards, which was really surprising. And that was something that we looked at from a Chargers perspective and said, well, that's good that they only held. We know the Bucs can run the ball. They didn't do any of that in the first half. They did it all in the second half on the back of Bucky Irving, 117 yards, breaking off some big ones, 15 carries, no touchdowns. He had a 54-yarder. And as a former Oregon Duck, I could see you smiling as he was sprinting down the sideline.
Listen, I hate to see it, but I love to see it. I'm extremely proud of Bucky. Watching him during his time at Oregon, seeing the kind of guy that he was, and watching that kind of transfer over to the NFL, translate to the NFL, I'm ecstatic for him. And he ran through the Chargers defense like sprinters through a finish line, effortlessly. It was easy. He made it look easy. It was a bad day all the way around for the Chargers today. But 7.8 a carry can't happen. Can't happen. Can't happen. Can't happen. I'll repeat it one more time. It cannot happen. But shout out to Bucky. Shout out even Shad White. He had a good game. 15, I think, for 15 carries for 64 yards.
He had it going a little bit earlier. Bucky kind of got it going later and busted off that big one. Look, that's credit to the line there. When they replayed that one, they showed on that one play when he busted off the 54-yarder, both Derwin James and Deion Henley missed tackles. They just they got caught up and like all of a sudden Bucky's by him and they're like, oh no. And it's rare that both of those dudes will miss a tackle, especially on the same play.
And especially Derwin. That's not something we see too often. That's an anomaly. But it happens. It's the NFL. You know, these guys are good on the opposite side of the ball as well. But we can't give up 7.8, guys. We can't do that.
Those are big chunks right there. And then on the receiving game, Mike Evans, who's a stud, as you said, they referred to him as a future Hall of Famer. Tough to argue that. 9 catches today for 159 yards. Ooh, he had a 57-yarder for a touchdown, which was just a busted play as far as I was concerned. It felt like they had Mayfield trapped in the backfield and they should have sacked him and it turned into a touchdown. That was a gut punch right there. That play was brutal.
Those plays break. Those are the straw that broke the camel's back. Those are the type plays that do that. And they had, again, Baker played a hell of a game. He played a phenomenal game outside of the interception, finding guys, extending plays, and Baker would have had a hell of a lot more rushing yards if not for a couple of penalties that brought some runs back. But getting back to Mike, I mean, this is Mike Evans. He's been doing this year in and year out, consistently doing and performing at a high level. I'm not surprised by this performance by him.
One positive from the Chargers from a statistical standpoint, Justin Herbert reaches 20,000 yards, the third youngest to do that. Unfortunately, it is an afterthought, a postscript in this game. Heineke came in a little bit, but Herbert 21 of 33. That can't happen either. 195, had the first interception since week 2, was it? 357 passes. Yeah, that's a nice streak. One shy of 4th all-time on the list of consecutive passes without a interception. But it all was for naught today because they couldn't do anything running the ball. And in the second half, the passing game was also just not there. And I thought that it was, if you want to break it down, is this a lack of proficiency or performance from the Chargers or credit to the defensive effort from the Bucs? I would lean towards the Bucs stifled the Chargers. They just gave them no opportunity to throw the ball. And, it because of the pressure, because the receivers weren't open. And in spite of Herbert checking down better than we've seen in the last few weeks, he just had nobody to throw the ball to. Quentin Johnston had a pretty good game. That was in the first half, 5 for 45. Nothing in the second half, really. Stone Smart, also pretty good game, for a guy that really was unheard of about 3 weeks ago. 5 for 50. But the Bucs were. Am I wrong? Did I miss that? Am I an idiot on that as well? Am I embarrassing?
Don't let the fans do that to you, okay? Don't let them do that to you.
Kenyon, the football fans they know everything. They're the smartest fans. It was funny during a commercial because the game was on Fox. They had a commercial for the Colin Cowherd show, and he goes, "In spite of me proving you wrong all the time," talking to the fans, "you continue to argue with me." And I was like, amen, brother. Amen.
It's what's the motto in retail stores? The customer's always right. That's kind of the motto in sports. Fans always think they're right. They always think they know it all. But no, you hit the nail right on the head. This was more about Tampa Bay and their defense and the pressure and the coverage. This was more about them than it was anything about the Chargers. The Chargers weren't able, like you said, to do anything. We really didn't even show up. We didn't have to show up today. We really could have turned this game in and just gave it away the way that they played. But this was definitely more about the Bucs being the more physical team, being the more dominant team, having the most energy, going out there and executing their game plan the way that Coach Bowles would love to see them do it. So this was definitely more about the Bucs than it had anything to do with the Chargers.
Yeah, the turnover game was 2 apiece. What the hell? What? It just happened. Oh, sorry. My screen went black. I was like, where'd you go?
I seen it flashing in your glasses.
When you force 2 turnovers, but you give up 2, usually don't get blown out like this. So I feel like this was kind of a wake-up call for the Chargers. Maybe last week took a lot out of them to keep that one tight. I don't know. This game to me was kind of shocking from the standpoint that they just really had nothing at all to show in the second half. They had no bullets in their chambers at all. No. It was just absolutely listless. And that's kind of surprising. And even from a defensive perspective, look, the defense has clearly been the biggest part of this team. This has been largely responsible for their success this year. The defense and their ability to hold the opponents down. And in the first half, I thought that bend don't break mentality that we talk a lot about here
was kind of still there.
They start to bow their neck, force field goals down in the red zone. They had none of that in the second half. And I'm just like, I start to feel now at this point of the season, they're a little banged up, both sides of the ball. Cam Hart left again with another concussion. We probably won't see him again for the rest of the season. That's 2, right? Isn't that 2 concussions for him?
Yeah, he'll be on IR.
Yeah, so he's probably done. But the rest of these guys who we have just kind of relied on, Molden, Dayon Henley, Christian Fulton, Derwin James, Tariq Still, they can only do so much. If the offense isn't going to show up and perform and put up, I feel like the injuries to the offense is affecting the defense, and I don't know how you respond from that. It feels like the playbook isn't big enough.
Well, the defense is on the field a lot, not just in today's game, but kind of throughout this entire season. The defense has been on the field, and so it's a long grind, these NFL seasons. So eventually you're gonna wear down. Eventually you're gonna break down. Eventually you're going to hit some mental fatigue, and that's what today's game looked like. It looked like this team was broken down, mentally fatigued, and just didn't have the fight. They didn't have the fight today, offensively, defensively, and I think that showed, especially offensively. I think eight consecutive drives scoreless.
Yeah.
What do you say to that? What do you say to that?
After the break, I'm going to share the possession time numbers with you. Kind of staggering. I think this is tilted abnormally in Tampa Bay's favor. You tell me if I'm right. I'm not right about anything. I'm an idiot, right? That's what we are. I am awful. Embarrassing.
Terrible.
Like I'll stop. I'm sorry. Just playing around. We don't have much else to talk about, so I got to bang on myself. 40-17, the final. The Chargers fall to the Bucs. They've lost back-to-back games. They're now 8-6. It's the Locked On Chargers postcast on the Locked On Sports LA YouTube channel. Feel free to download it wherever you find your podcasts on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. You can also find the Locked On Chargers podcast there. Monday through Friday, breaking this team down very in depth. So check that out Monday through Friday on the Locked On Chargers podcast feed. Tonight's episode also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. Of course, they're America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL. Like today's game, I think if you were a Bucs fan and you were down at the break by 4, you're like, not worried. It's all going to be okay. And you could have made a live bet at halftime and probably done pretty well with that one. You can also view live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Chargers get shellacked, giving up 27 in the second half, 40-17 the final. Kenyon, this number is abnormally tilted in favor of Tampa Bay. Am I wrong? 36 minutes to 23 time of possession. Did you hear what I said? 36.
Yeah, 36.
That is heavily in favor. You were just talking about it before the break. The defense is on the field too much. When it's 13 minutes discrepancy, that's huge, isn't it?
It's you don't see that often. You don't see that often. And I think if you were to eliminate the score stats and you just leave that time of possession, I think you will know you can decide and decipher who won this football game just based off the time of possession. Again, defense is on the field all day long. Anytime you go 0 for on third down, 0 for 2 on fourth down, I believe it was, your defense doesn't stand a chance. You know, these are high intensity athletes running around this field all day, fighting hits, contact, body breaking down. It's going to be a long day. And for the Chargers, it was an absolute long day defensively and even longer offensively when you watch this game.
Yeah, the statistics really do. You're hitting the nail right on the head there. Spot on. The statistics tell this story, right? Tell the story of this game. 506 total yards to 206 total yards for the Chargers. 24 first downs for the Bucs, 14 for the Chargers, and 0 for on third and fourth down. Whereas the Bucs were 9 of 15 on third down. I haven't seen a number like that. That is as efficient as you get when it comes to third down. They were very, very effective today on third down, and really just all across the board, moving the ball when they needed to. I didn't feel like it landed on any one guy for this team, and that's a situation where you just feel beat. Like nothing they did today was bad. Like everywhere they turned, there was an answer there for them, especially in the second half when it mattered. And I started to think, are the Chargers just bad in the second half? And then I was like, well, just last week they played great in the third quarter, but then fell apart in the fourth. So they're not only a first half team. They really are. It changed because they were terrible in the first half last week. Came out and played well first half this week, and then just went to pot in the second half. But you just have to give credit to the Bucs and Baker Mayfield, specifically Bucky Irving and Mike Evans. Those guys, the 3 stars of the game, without a doubt. They just dominated across the board against this Charger team, and we have to wonder what's next. How do they get off the mat here? Short week, late game. They play Denver on Thursday in Denver. So I believe, let me double check that.
It's not lining up to look good.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually in LA. My bad. So
at least they don't have to travel.
Yeah, Thursday in LA against the Broncos. That makes sense. And that team's going pretty well right now. So, when you look at this team, what do you think their probability of making the playoffs is?
Here's the thing. When you hit a skid like this, it's a slippery slope. Mm-hmm. And the Chargers can't afford to lose their footing. They can't lose this game against the Broncos. I don't know how you can't. It's impossible to get healthy in a 4-day span. But what you can do, and what Coach Rivera used to tell us all the time during my Carolina days, there's a couple things that you do control playing this game of football: your attitude, your effort, and your preparation. And those 3 things they can absolutely lock in on and come out and execute when it's time to play on Thursday. Listen, you have to have a come to Jesus moment as a team. Listen, this ain't good enough. The last 2 weeks we have not performed up to our standard. This week was embarrassing, and maybe this game was needed to force them to kind of look into the mirror. You know what I'm saying? And okay, you know what? Let's refocus. Let's relock in, and let's really get back to playing Charger football. And I think that the coach that Harbaugh is, that's what's going to happen. I think, and I hope to God we come out and we see a completely different Charger team than what we've seen these past couple of weeks.
Yeah, Broncos wins over Las Vegas and Cleveland, and I don't know what they did today, but they're going in the right direction. ESPN has a matchup prediction for this game next Thursday, 59% in favor of the Chargers, and ESPN's power index on the Chargers making the playoffs is still at 90% after this loss today and the loss last week, that number is surprising to me. I would have thought it would be closer to 60 or 70% the way that they're going. But, after the Broncos, they don't have too much ahead of them. They have the Patriots and the Raiders. So those are both winnable games, as are, the Broncos game is winnable for sure.
They're hot.
yeah, but they're playing well, and the Chargers are not, and the Chargers are banged up. So hopefully Herbert can find some more health. And Ladd McConkey we didn't hear anything about Ladd McConkey. He played late into the game. They just went away from him late in the game, which again is mind-boggling. And we haven't heard much about J.K. Dobbins as to whether or not he will be back. He's probably on that sort of day-to-day list. Wouldn't you expect at this point?
Yeah, he should be. Well, it's his MCL, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he should be right on the fringe of making a comeback.
So they say not eligible to return until week 17 at the earliest. So that would
he went on IR. He went on the public. He went on the IR list, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he has to sit out a certain amount of games before he can return.
Right.
Yeah. So he should. I mean, obviously week 17, and fortunate for the Chargers.
Yeah, you're right. On the IR list, week 13. So that means a minimum of 4 games. So that means he can't return until the Patriots game. So we will not see him against the Broncos.
Well, luckily for the Chargers, depending on how next week game goes, the Broncos have the Bengals and Kansas City to kind of end their season. So that'll definitely be of a good help if those teams take care of business, seeing as how there's only a game separating the two teams, the Chargers and the Broncos. But we gotta regroup. I think that's the biggest thing. We have to. It's a must. It's a necessity. It's imperative. Because if we don't, this could easily turn into a 3-game skid, maybe 4-game skid, depending on how this team responds.
Yeah. Well, it will be interesting. Unfortunately, we will be on the IR Thursday because I'll be on vacation and in a time zone where I won't be able to watch the game or, do this thing afterwards because they flexed it. I was ready for Sunday. I had it all planned in the middle of my vacation to do the show, but they flexed it on us. And I was like, oh, you and your flexing. Stop flexing. Although most of the time it works out well. The flexing, generally speaking, is very beneficial. I feel like they make the right decision and the right call most of the time. But we will not be here for that one, unfortunately. So we will catch you guys the following week for Chargers Patriots. One quick thing to wrap up with here, question about Greg Roman. Time to look at Greg Roman and ask why this is Justin Herbert's worst season and why their offense is such trash for half of the game every week.
That's not a bad. That's not. You're not wrong.
You're not wrong, without a doubt. Though I don't. I look. I'm not going to cut bait on anybody 1 year into a new deal and a new situation, right? We have seen that Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh they are a successful duo. They know what they're doing and they have proven to be successful. So I'm not ready to cut bait just yet. If we're in this same position in a year, then we'll have another discussion about it. But yeah, slow down. Like, we don't need to fire everybody all the time just because they lose a couple of games, right? That's not going to make it better.
That's what that about fans I don't understand. It's like, okay, I feel like these fans have commitment issues in relationships because as soon as it gets hard, it's like, oh shit, oh wow, sorry. It's like, oh yeah, fire everybody, get rid of everybody. Everybody got to go. Fire.
You have to wonder if the sink is dirty. Are they screaming divorce? Well, I want a divorce.
What are we doing? What are we doing? Listen, it's football. There's ups, there's downs, there's highs, there's lows. That's part of the game. Is going to happen.
And that's not just football, Kenyon. That's sports. Like, if the team is going bad, fire somebody. Gotta fire the coach.
That's marriage. That's relationships. It's everything. There's ups and downs, highs and lows to everything.
Yeah,
stick with it.
I covered the Clippers during a time when Vinny Del Negro was the coach, and they were winning like 50 games, which is a lot. That's a good season. They were winning 50 games, and people every game would sit there for like 15 minutes per game screaming, fire Del Negro, fire Del Negro, fire. Like what? I mean, it was probably they did ultimately fire him, but I don't know that Tyronn Lue or whoever was the next coach is better.
It hasn't been any better.
Yeah, I mean, Tyronn Lue's a good coach. They're all pretty good coaches. You just got to find a lot of luck and momentum, and there's a lot of things that go into it. So let's not start firing Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman just yet.
Let's give them a chance, guys.
A little bit of leeway. All right, 40-17 the final today. Chargers lose to the Bucs. For Kenyon Barner, I'm Pete Fox. This is the Locked On Chargers Postcast. Thank you guys for checking in, and thanks for watching and listening. Have a good week. We'll catch you in a week or so, 2 weeks basically, for the Patriots game. Take care. Have a good night.